Hello, welcome to The Source Within with Chloe Pedalino, where I share the source within me with hopes it sparks the source within thee. Today, we're actually going to talk about what the age of Aquarius is. And no, I had not intended on starting off with episodes related to astrology, but here we are. I am leaning into this process, and this is where it has taken me. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Now, astrology is one of those things that has gotten a bad rap over time. It's one of those um, things that essentially over time people dismissed or and disregarded, and so it's kind of been put in this bucket of not being taken seriously, which is unfortunate because ultimately the astrology is talking about how the cosmos, how the planets and the solar system, the various components of the solar system move throughout time, and how it they move in relationship to us on earth and our planet on earth. Now, how the planets in our solar system move affect us on both a personal and individual level, depending on somebody's individual chart. And that is based on essentially when you were born, the exact location where you were where you were born on Earth. If you looked up to the sky at that moment of your birth, the all of these stars and planets would be in a certain alignment. They would be in a certain place at that exact moment in time that you were born in that exact location. So your own personal astrological chart is very specific and personalized to you. And so if you are interested in learning more about astrology, number one, Molly McCord is fabulous. She's a Western um, tropical astrologer, and her name is Molly McCord. I'll put information in show notes. She has a podcast and has published a book and has other great courses and resources for you to learn more about this yourself. So that's one component of astrology. Another component of it is how it affects us collectively as a civilization, meaning that how do the cosmos and where they are in place affect us basically as a civilization, as a mass population of all humans on Earth. We are all experiencing similar in the way that it affects us on a larger scale as a civilization. We are all going to be felt. We are all going to feel those effects essentially of the planets. So, a little background, which I did not really know until I was diving more into this, but our our sun and the family of planets in our solar system, it essentially takes 26,000 years for our sun in our solar system and the planets in our solar system to revolve around what is called a central sun. So a sun that is not in our solar system, that exists elsewhere. In fact, it exists like millions of miles in away from us. But so takes again our sun and our planet and the planets in our solar system 26,000 years to rotate around this central sun. And its orbit, the time it takes to do so is that's what's called that is what makes up the zodiac, what we refer to as the zodiac. And the zodiac is divided into 12 signs. That is, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. Now, just to go through one of each of those signs, it takes our solar system 2,100 years, around about 2,100 years, to pass through just one of those signs of the zodiac. Now, the other thing to know is that the progression of this, it moves in a backwards way. So I just listed out the different zodiacs in chronological order, but for this, when we're talking about an age and this revolution around the central sun, that actually goes in a backwards way. And that's called the progression of the equinoxes. What an age is, if you might have heard of this before, the age of Aquarius, for example, is the age of that is the 2000 years. Basically, it's 2000 years it takes for us to move from one sign to the next sign. So that is what we're talking about when we're talking about the age of Aquarius. And I do want to say here, because again, it comes back to this notion of like new age. What's new age and what's not new age? And new age is, again, something that I feel like similar to when astrology is mentioned, that it's kind of pushed to the side, boo-hooed, poo-pooed and dismissed, or, shut down or disregarded as, I don't know, non-scientific, non-valid, whatever it is. Basically, the system's powers that be that don't want people to believe this kind of stuff. You put it down, speak negatively about it so that people will dismiss it. But in fact, prior to the time, well, during the times of Jesus, basically, prior to maybe around 300 AD, 300 years after Christ lived, it was the standard that civilization and higher institutions of education of those times, and the general civilizations and the populations of that time, it was well known the importance of the planets and their movements and how they impacted people on both an individual and a collective level. And they certainly did study this because it was so important in terms of a multitude of things. But, in the past, it would have been around agriculture, for example, or they were able to predict certain events based on their studies of the planets and their movements. So, just to give some background on that, this is a very real thing, and it's interesting that it's poo-pooed, astrology is poo-pooed because it is quite scientific. I mean, the bottom line is that, just like as I said, what is an age? An age is, when these planets are moving around the solar sun, and as we transition from one zodiac to the next. Now, why am I talking all about this? Okay. We are about to enter into the Aquarius age. Prior to this age, we had Pisces. So Pisces was around the time of the rise of the Roman Empire. That's when Jesus lived during this time. And if people recall, a big symbol of Jesus is the fish, is those intertwining fish. Well, guess what? The sign of Pisces, the symbol of Pisces rather, is a fish. And it's the fish, sign of Pisces, is used everywhere as, Christian iconography. And so that was the time of Pisces. 2000 years before that was the time of Abraham. Abraham lived in the Aryan age. He was around that time. Before that, Adam. Adam was around the time of the Taurus age. Now, we don't know the exact, as I said, it's like around 2100 years. It's not like, oh, this exact moment at this exact time we can pinpoint. We are transitioning from X to Z age. We can't put our fingers on it, but we know around about the time of when this occurs. So what does Pisces mean? What are we coming out of? And then what are we going into? Well, we are coming out of Pisces essentially. It's like Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac, which is interesting. So it is symbolic of endings, completions, can be closing out of karma. It can be finalizing healing processes. And on lower levels of Pisces, I got a lot of this from Molly McCord again. I'll put the reference in the notes of the episode. The lower energies of Pisces include blame, self-pity, feeling powerlessness, escapism, can be feelings of abandonment. It can be feelings of rejection. And Molly brought this up, which I think is a really interesting concept, that, this feeling of rejection could be related to the feeling of feeling abandoned from God, like abandoned from the divine, from our source, from our creator. This feeling of being disconnected now that we're on earth and we're not connected with God, our creator. And so some of us might have this experience of feeling isolated, left, of feeling, disconnected, and a little bit of this feeling of abandonment. And it's related to this concept of like, we are not, this disconnect from God, this disconnect from our source by being on earth itself. And I suspect a lot of that is also related to us, the general public, not knowing that we can connect with God by going internally and inside. But we really haven't been told that in a general way. And so people are feeling kind of lost. There is this knowing internally that we are connected to God somewhere, but we haven't really put that together in a conscious way necessarily, at least not collectively. So I find that to be a really interesting topic, and I could go more into that because I have definitely experienced that missing, that longing, that kind of loneliness and disconnection from, I think, God and the source. And it's by being on earth rather than being in lives where I've been in predominantly more spiritual, in more spirit form rather than material, physical form that we are in here. But scooting on from that, Pisces. So what else about Pisces? Pisces, on a higher side, there's always low and high of each sign. Higher side, Pisces represents the bigger picture of it all, detaching, not taking things personally, not being overwhelmed by emotions in the world. And also Pisces is about being in harmony, both with the spiritual and the physical world. It's balancing how we can exist in a physical world while still engaging in spiritual kind of practices. And how can you live in the physical 3D world without being fully detached from your spiritual self, from your creative self, from your intuition? And these are things that we will talk about through this podcast, is how do we live in a 3D world and maintain a connection with our spiritual selves? And this is very challenging. It can be very challenging at times. So we'll dive into that and give some tips on how to manage that in the day-to-day world. Pisces is the veil of illusion. So, it's a veil of illusion. So powerlessness and victim mindset, for example, those are belief systems, and those belief systems are veils of illusion. They are covering up what's actually going on, but they're doing so very effectively. They have done so, at least for many thousands of years, very effectively. But the thing about this is that we can choose now. Once that veil is lifted, we can then choose, okay, am I going to continue to believe in this, or am I going to make a decision and choose to believe in something different? And what that brings us to is the age of Aquarius. Now, the age of Aquarius that we are stepping into is an age about transformation. It is an age about fully owning ourselves as individuals on this earth. And what I mean by that is it is about connecting to our knowingness, our innate knowingness. And this is about knowing that we have these incredible abilities within inside ourselves that we can tap into and develop in order to advance ourselves spiritually, to evolve spiritually, to go through the ascension process of spirituality. And so what we're meant to do in this coming era is reconnect with that within ourselves. And this means reconnect with ourselves on a quantum level, which I will also go into further in other parts of this podcast. And it's by getting to know yourselves, by reconnecting with your inner self, by reconnecting with your source self, by reconnecting with your spiritual self, with your God self, with your soul and spirit self, and by embracing these changes, embracing our uniqueness, our individual strengths, abilities, creativities, we are then able to and this brings together a sense of unity, a sense of harmony. This is a time in the age of Aquarius where we are going to be encouraged to go into more of our gifts. We're going to be encouraged to connect with these unique parts of ourselves and come into our own, step into our own as sovereign creators of our own reality. And this will ultimately bring us to more unity consciousness, more of a collective consciousness. So I know it sounds kind of counterintuitive that, oh, okay, I'm going to go and get more connected with myself. Wouldn't that lead to me being more distant, more separate? But in fact, it doesn't. By acknowledging that everybody has their own unique talents, abilities, ways of thinking, ways of being, and by honoring and supporting and fostering the growth of everybody's individual kind of gifts, ultimately that will bring us together. Because if everybody's living their best self, well, that helps us as a collective society. So this is what how I think about the age of Aquarius. It is ushering in, we are coming into a time of it is about time to live your best life, to live your best self. And by doing that, we are going to come together as a civilization. This is the time where if you have felt in the past like you have been an outsider, or you feel like you don't quite fit in with the standard or the traditional teachings or ways of thinking or the status quo or traditionalism, this is gonna be your time to shine, because we are moving past that. That is fading to the background, and we are really kind of stepping into our own and embracing the uniqueness of all of us. And, when we learn again to accept that everybody has their own way of being, their own energy codes, their own, beautiful gifts that they bring to this world, then we can start working collectively together and not being so divisive, not being so against each other, not having such a dichotomous, antagonistic world. And we can start connecting with each other collectively and essentially step into more evolving humanity in a larger and bigger way. Now, this is really this is really badass, and this is really exciting. Ultimately, we decided to be born in this time for a certain reason. It's very cool that we are on the brink of, or we are just in the stages of transitioning into this Aquarian age, because it's going to usher and bring in something that's so much different than the past. We have been living under this veil of the dark ages and ignorance and what have you for hundreds of years now. And I think we're all feeling that burden. We're all feeling the weight of that. We're all feeling it's been feeling a sense of kind of like hopelessness in some ways, and I think that's why people are, so eager to be like, what else is out there? What else is in existence? This cannot possibly be the only answer. It isn't the only answer. That's what the exciting thing is. It is not the only. There is so much more than what we are seeing, and part of that is showing up here. Part of us is what is showing us, what is preparing us for. This age is entering in a time where we are going to be connected way more than we ever have been before. This is going to be a period of time, these next 2,000 years, where people are going to ascend, meaning that they're going to reach, at least in this kind of in their earthly lifetime, a level of evolution to the point of ascension where they might not have to return to Earth for future lives. They might be able to continue to live in more of their spirit soul self. And I will speak to more of that in what I'm talking about, what I mean by that in future episodes. But just to say, we are entering into a beautiful, incredible time. It's stepping into another golden era where we haven't had that in many thousands of years. So I don't know about you, but I am really ready for it. I think it's badass. I think it's exciting. We, you know, we are also getting energetic downloads and upgrades energetically to prepare us for the rising of this golden era, the rising of the Aquarian age. We have been prepping for this on a quantum level to some degree for a little bit of time now, and we will continue to do so. So, when we feel that energy, for example, time has flown by. I don't know if you've noticed this, but in the past few months, time is just swirling and, you know, going by so quickly, and time is going to continue to speed up. We're functioning at different paces than we were before. The times of Jesus when he lived, time was different then. Even, like the visuals of what life looked like on Earth might have been a little bit different then. So things change, and we are about to enter into a new time, and a huge new time of change, where we are going to be tapping into things that everybody is not even privy to, that we have the abilities of. And what I mean by that is telepathy. What I mean by that is communicating with off-planet beings. What I mean by that is connecting more and partnering more with off-planet beings, angels, ascended masters. It's connecting and taking more ownership and understanding the power of energy and how we use and direct energy with our thoughts. And through doing so, we become, and then sound, and then by doing so, we become powerful creators of our reality. These are just to name a few, but it's an amazing realization to have when you really realize that, guess what? Like, you are here on the planet at a very auspicious time in history. And it is a time in history where we have greater access to be developing our consciousness at a faster rate than really we have had before. And it's really incredible. I hope this information leaves you with excitement and wanting to know more and wanting to know how we can do this, because it's really freaking amazing. And it's really cool that we are going to be having access to this self-development and growth, and ultimately collective development and growth during our lifetimes. So thanks so much for being here on The Source Within. As always, I hope that by sharing the source within me, it sparks the source within thee. Thanks so much, y'all.